It's time for Cleared to Play, where we take you inside the tank, get you updated on the latest injuries in the Bay. Proud to partner with UCSF Health on this segment and bring in Associate Professor of Orthopedic Surgery, Dr. Nirav Pandya. Doc, somebody plays basketball tonight. It's not a Warrior, but we're glad to have you, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you guys doing?
We're doing great. What do you think about what you I'm sure no doubt are hearing from OTAs today with regard to Brock Purdy and optimism for week one? And I guess the larger question, what do you take from everything you've heard in following that situation in the last few weeks?
I mean, it sounds like everything's going according to the timeline. I mean, I think the key thing, number one, was, is he going to be ready to throw out that 3-month mark? And I think that's the first big hurdle in terms of, is everything healing well? Is everything recovering well? Because if he can start throwing at 3 months, that means the ligament has a lot of healing, mobility, strength is there. So it sounds like everything's on track for him to throw it month 3. If that's the case, then that's 50% of the battle. Then it's really seeing how does his elbow respond. It doesn't sound like there are any setbacks right now. So if things progress normally, will he potentially be ready at month 6, month 7, and be ready for that beginning of the season? All things considered, with what everyone's reporting, it sounds like everything's going to plan. So I don't see any setbacks right now. Now the real key is, how does, number one, his elbow respond to throwing? And then when he gets into camp, how does it respond to contact? So I think those are the next 2 big things that we have to see.
And based on the procedure he had with the internal brace, is there any follow-up procedure to remove that brace, or does that just stay in there forevermore?
Stays in forever. So, that's one of the advantages of it, is that it does give a little bit more structural stability. So not only does it allow you to, number one, rehab quicker because you've got some stability that comes from that brace, but also secondarily, it helps to keep that area stronger. So barring him having any irritation from it or anything else, that's just part of his ulnar collateral ligament for the rest of his life. And it hopefully allows him to get back quicker, this season, and also protects that ligament as he moves forward if he gets hit in that area again.
Doc, I want to ask you about Trey Lance. There was maybe an injury last year that some of us didn't know about, a broken finger that caused him to change his mechanics, and now he's worked on changing mechanics again in another offseason. Are there any injury concerns with changing the way that you throw the ball?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you're starting to kind of mechanically go through things and change the way you throw, you do worry about, are you going to develop elbow, shoulder, wrist, or even lower body issues as you're trying to change the way you've done something for a long period of time. But, listen to some of the reports, they were saying that some of the soreness he was experiencing, I remember last year everyone was talking about arm fatigue, and is that real or not? But it sounds like he was getting soreness, and one of his quarterback coaches was saying that a lot of that soreness may have been coming from the way he was throwing. So there is a possibility that if this new throwing motion, which seems a little bit more compact, he's releasing the ball a little bit more tightly, if that gets rid of the soreness, that may put him in a position where what everyone was calling fatigue, which is actually some sort of muscle overuse or muscle injury, hopefully will resolve, and it won't lead to secondary issues. So it is hard. You could potentially go one way where you get hurt more because you're trying to do something different, or if that really was the case of why he was getting this fatigue and getting soreness, then it could actually help him in the long term. So it's hard at this level to do it, but he may potentially do it. And if you watch the videos on YouTube, he seems to change his throwing motion, which is great.
Slow motion videos of a guy throwing the football in shorts, Doc. Where do I sign up? I mean, it gets no better than that. From the pigskin to the hardwood, and a lot of talk this year about Klay Thompson and not playing really at all over the summer leading into last season. If you were Klay's trainer or Klay's doctor, how would he go about approaching this offseason to make it different than last year?
Yeah, I think, in terms of, kind of the mental aspect, I think number one, I think it's still working through some of the, the mental and kind of emotional barriers that may still be there that prevented him from playing. So number one, just kind of looking at it from a, sports psychology standpoint. I think secondarily, when you look at it from a physical standpoint, even if you kind of take the long road and say, look, sometimes it takes 2.5 years from all these injuries to recover, I think now you're really going to look at what are the things that Klay has physically struggled with. Like his 3-point shooting is great. He clearly is doing well on the offensive end, but is he struggling in terms of endurance at the end of the season? Is there agility or issues on defense? Now say, look, let's address those physical issues. It's not necessarily about skill, but let's get that agility, let's get that strength so he can be a presence on the defensive end and also get you live game action. So those first couple months of the season aren't about getting you back up to speed, but about building on what you've gained over the summer. So I think it's just setting him up to have a nice long season and then potentially improve some of those parts of his game that are still lacking from his 2 injuries.
Doc, LeBron James danced around with the idea of retirement suddenly last night after the loss. And the idea of LeBron and the Warriors, this isn't the first time it's come up, but it did come up again from the Ringer earlier today. That foot injury at age 38. What are the chances that that kind of dogs LeBron the rest of the way?
I think it's pretty minimal. I mean, obviously he's been very kind of unclear about what it was, but he said it was a tendon injury, and obviously if there was something completely torn, he wouldn't be playing. A lot of times what these tendon injuries are in athletes of this age is kind of inflammation on the tendon, some partial kind of, tearing of the tendon, and typically most of these resolve with rest over the offseason. If he's got a lot of inflammation, there's a lot of scar that develops around it. Sometimes you can go in there and quote-unquote clean out the tendon, but I don't anticipate him having an issue, just the way he takes care of his body. And most importantly, how he's able to exert himself on the court at the appropriate times. I don't anticipate this being an issue for him moving forward. He's just such a player that's able to take care of himself and not really miss a lot of time. So I don't anticipate that being an issue moving forward if he decides to play next season.
Doc, do the Celtics play basketball tonight? Because they didn't 2 nights ago.
I know. All I know is that Jimmy Butler always plays basketball, so Jimmy Butler is going to do his thing, I'm sure.
Did you buy all of those Jimmy Butler jerseys that you said you were going to get, Doc?
No, although it is funny when I was making jokes, people think I'm actually serious. So I did not. I do have a Jimmy Butler Chicago Bulls jersey, but I do not have the Timberwolves and 76ers antique jersey.
The double sweep is on the table tonight. Crazy stuff. Doc, thank you so much.
No problem. Take care, guys.
Okay, you too. The proceeding was sponsored by UCSF Health.